Hi everyone. Why put a coil across the capacitor? Well, in this video, I'll explain exactly why in a very easy way to understand. Welcome to a brand new Tech Tip series here at Mr. Carlson's lab. If you'd like to stay current in this Tech Tip series, definitely subscribe and hang around. I'll have lots of great tech tips coming after this video as well, so stay tuned. Anyways, let's take a look at this LC network, the coil and the capacitor, and I'll show you exactly why this is done. Underneath the outer coating of this little component here is a whole bunch of hair-fine wires, even finer than a hair. This is 33 microhenry, so there's going to be quite a bit of wire under there, wound on a little form. So one end of the wire connects to this cap here, and the other end of the wire connects to this cap. Inductors are relatively simple devices. One thing to keep in mind if you're ever working with these things, the higher you go in inductance, so the closer you get to say 100 microhenries or 200 or 400 or maybe even 1,000 microhenries, which is 1 millihenry, the more wire is going to be wound on the form. So say this was 1 millihenry, you wouldn't have this curvature on the body of the component. This would be wound straight with the caps. A lot of the times the caps will be a bit bigger as well. And in some cases, depending on the inductance, when it's really high, there'll even be a bulge because there's so much wire. So something to keep in mind. Another little trick in locating these on a board, you can see how this looks somewhat like a resistor. What tells it apart from a resistor is the color and the shine on the body of the component. You'll come across green or blue components in circuit that have a shine on them. Usually green or blue components that have a shine are inductors. If they have a porous or dull looking body, like say a metal film resistor, you know how they have that kind of a gray powdery coating look on them. If you come across a green or a blue body component that has a powdery looking coat on it, that's most likely a resistor. All right, there's another little trick for you right there. The inductor and capacitor above form a little LC network. They're in parallel with each other. And this would form a little tuned circuit if it was in an oscillator or something like that. Now I'm going to design an oscillator and draw up a schematic, and I will share that with you in just a moment here. Something that's a little bit different than the oscillator that I designed and shared with the experiment with the capacitors and the varactors and things, that required a tapped coil. This coil doesn't have a tap on it, so I'll design something that's somewhat more like maybe a Colpitts type oscillator, something like that. And again, I'll share that with you in just a moment. Now, in order to get a rough idea, now here's the trick, a rough idea of where this would oscillate at in a circuit, you can use an online LC calculator for that. I'm not going to bore you with the math today. That is a little bit of an equation. In my Patreon electronics course, I've done the breakdown for RC networks and things like that. If you're into working that out, I've taken the complex math and broken it down so that it's very easy to use on just a standard calculator. So again, that's in my Patreon electronics course here. So what I'll do here is I will attach this into a little oscillator circuit. I'll make a little jig, and we'll see where this oscillates at. This is the Hartley oscillator that I designed and used in some of the previous episodes here on the Tech Tips series. I used this to explain how varactors work and NP0 capacitors and things like that. This little test jig here and all that. And the plans for this, again, are on Patreon, even to make the little tool if you want to make your own little islands on printed circuit boards to do experimentation like this. This works very well because it's very well shielded, right? Because you have the back side is solid copper and the top side. So this works very well to experiment with, especially if you want to turn something into a circuit board. I also, of course, up there, if you're really serious about making circuit boards, this is stuff I release. I design circuits like this. This is an iTube capacitor type tester. And this is also released on Patreon. Of course, I share how to make all of these boards, and all the plans and everything is there, right down to current sensing boards and things like that. This is for an upcoming project that I'm going to release very, very soon in a thing called the ADACAP circuit. So that's another little project that's going on up there right now. But in order to display what's going on in this, I figured this would be fun. Look at this. So I've done, really coarse circuit boards now, and I've done, the really clean, accurate stuff here, right? Oscillators and drivers and regulators and stuff, right? Look at this. This is parts tacked together. Let's see how well this works. This is just parts in free air, so I can plug the inductor across here, and we'll see how well that works. Little 9-volt battery connector on there. This is something very close to a Colpitts oscillator. So this is the schematic for that if you want to try and build that on your breadboard. So it takes a 9-volt battery and a little 2N3904, and it doesn't use a tap coil like this one does. If you'll recall, the schematic for this has a tap on it, and it's a little bit more difficult to put together and figure out where the tap goes. This is much more easy. You can just put a capacitor across a coil and build this very simple little circuit, and it should oscillate for you. So there you go. So this here you can attach to a scope or a frequency counter. Now keep in mind, when I said in the previous clip there that the math will get you close, it'll only get you close. Remember, there's circuit loading, and then when you clip your device in there, there's stray capacitance and inductance and all sorts of things. There's, even when you hook your oscilloscope probe to this, that is going to load it, right? So there is no buffer stages in this at all. This is just an oscillator straight out. But you can have some fun with that. Anyways, it works very well. It's a very nice little oscillator circuit here, and you can see here in a moment how well this works. So what I'll do is I will get a scope in here and a battery hooked up, and I'll bend the perfectly straight leads of the picture perfect inductor and capacitor here and plug it in. All right, here it is. I'll plug the LC network into the oscillator right here. See how close we actually are to what the math says. The math says that this should be about 3.06 megahertz. .03, that's not too bad, 3.04. So not a whole lot of circuit loading with this, all right? But now comes the fun, all right? I'll give you an example of what circuit loading does. You can see it's at 3.04 megahertz right there, right? So I'll remove the scope and I'll attach the frequency counter up here with a lot of coaxial cable. So a lot of capacitance added here because it's directly into the coax. Look what that's loading the oscillator down to, 1.534. Now if I reduce some of that load by lighter coupling this so the capacitance of the cable won't affect the oscillator so much, I'll put another capacitor in series. This is 100 pico. And look at that, it brings it up to about 2.324, something like that. Right? And that's just by putting another capacitor in series with this one here. So you can see how circuit loading would really affect that. But since the scope is so lightly loaded, I'm actually surprised how close this really is. Very surprised. I mean, that's pretty close to the target, right? Not too bad. Now, if I was to pull the inductor out of the oscillator, right, so it's not going to do anything right now, I'll plug just the inductor in so that this is the same value, right? There's just no cap across it, right? So I don't have to unwind that other cap. So I'll plug this one in with no capacitor. So we're just using the, circuit capacitance and stray capacitance. And look, it goes right up to 6.4 megahertz with no capacitor. So you can see how the capacitor tunes it down. The more capacitance you add is like basically weighing the circuit down. So again, I'll plug in an 82. This is another 82, and we should get roughly the same thing we had before. If I plug this into the jig, and then in there like so, yeah, and there we have it, the same as before. So the capacitors and the inductors are pretty close. So if I was to say take the 82 out and plug in a 100 picofarad, what's going to happen to the frequency then? Well, it should go down even more. It'll be under 3 megahertz, right? This is going to load it down even more because there's more capacitance. Yeah, see 2.77 megahertz, right? So you can see how the capacitor tunes the circuit with a little coil here. So we have an LC network, and they both have to work together. Another way to help you picture how an LC network works. So you have the coil and the capacitor, much like a coil spring and a shock absorber in a car. Well, if you have a coil spring and a shock absorber and you take the shock absorber out, so you just have the coil spring, what's going to happen to the car if you hit a bump? Well, you're going to get lots and lots of bounces. Lots and lots of bounces. If you have a proper shock absorber in the car that's damping the system down, instead of letting the car bounce, and say when you go over a bump, if you've ever been behind a car without any shock absorbers or faulty shock absorbers. It's actually kind of comical when they go over a bump, because as they're driving, the back end of the car just goes up and down and up and down. It'll go for blocks sometimes, just bounces, right? Because there's no control over that. And that's basically what's happening with this capacitor here, is the capacitor is acting like that shock absorber and damping it down. So if you were to take that shock absorber and fill it with more pressure, it would have less tendency to want to let the car bounce at all. And that would be like adding more capacitance. You're going to get a lot less bounces, to the point to where if you were to pressurize that shock with such high pressure that it didn't move anymore, it would be like putting a capacitor of a very high value in circuit. It would stop the oscillation. It would stop the bounce completely. And if I take this 0.1 or 0.01 microfarad, this one is, and put it across the coil here, hopefully you can see this right there. Nope, where is it? Get it into circuit. There it is. Completely stops it. And I take that off and it starts back up again. That again would be like pressurizing that shock absorber until it wouldn't allow any movement at all. So hopefully that kind of clarifies a little bit of how the coil, you know, the coil spring and the capacitor being the shock absorber would work in a circuit like this. If you're enjoying this video series, definitely subscribe and share the video. I'll have many more tech tips videos like this coming in the very near future, involving both modern and antique electronics alike. So whether you're into transistor stuff or vacuum tube stuff, I've got tips for them both. I'm here for you. If you'd like to take your electronics knowledge to a much higher level and gain access to many of my personal electronic creations, inventions, and designs, you're definitely going to want to check out my Patreon electronics course. I'll put the link in the video's description just below this video, and I'll pin the link at the top of the comments section. So if you click on that link, it'll take you right there and you can check it out. There's 230 videos there at this point, all dedicated to teaching you electronics, both modern and antique alike, with many projects for you to build. All the plans and everything for you to build your own circuit boards and point-to-point stuff is all there. Great place to be. Definitely check it out. All right, until next time, take care. Bye for now.